2, 1.
First, live, local. This is Fox 12 Now.
Hello, everyone. I'm Greg Nibbler. This is Fox 12 Now. Thanks for joining us. We are live here from the digital desk at Fox 12 Oregon. As you can see, the newsroom is in the background. I am here pressing buttons, but I have been really excited about this segment that we're going to be talking about today. You may have seen the news that the Oregon Zoo had a birthday for Delilah the chimpanzee, 50 years old. And there is quite the backstory to Delilah, to the Oregon Zoo, to everything they do there. And we get to have the pleasure right now of talking to Colleen, who is a primate keeper. That's an official job title at the Oregon Zoo. That shows how, unknowledgeable I am about this. So that's why I'm really glad that you're here. And Colleen, thanks for joining us. And before we even talk about Delilah, I really wanted to get into that. Like, when did you know you wanted to get involved in this field, and what exactly is a primate keeper?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me. I love talking about our primates, especially Delilah. She's my favorite. We're not supposed to have favorites, but she is mine. So I grew up on the backside of a farm in Florida and always knew I wanted to work with animals, had ridden horses and all that. And then discovered a book about Jane Goodall when I was 12. And was fortunate enough to have parents who supported and didn't tell me no when it came to wanting to pursue that. And I basically started volunteering at a chimpanzee and orangutan sanctuary in Central Florida called Center for Great Apes. And then moved on from there a few years later to raise money for orangutans in the wild, the orangutan outreach, and then that got me here to the Oregon Zoo. And I've been working here for over 10 years with these guys. So it's been almost 20 years, but it sparked when I was about 12. So almost 30 years ago.
Wow. So you knew right from the start, pretty much.
Yeah. I little stubborn, but yeah, I didn't really, once it got stuck in my head that that's what I wanted to do, I really dove into it. And I feel really fortunate. I feel good at my job and take a lot of pride in it and a lot of pleasure in it. And really making their lives better is a privilege. So, I love it.
Well, tell me about that. What's the day-to-day job like? What do you do when you get there?
Yeah, so a lot of people think that it is a lot of just cleaning up after them, which is true. We definitely do a lot of that. But a lot of us have 4-year science degrees and have volunteer experience or internship experience and all of that. So it is very challenging to get into the field at good facilities like ours. And besides that, we do a lot of training with these guys, all for their health care. So everything we do with them training wise, the main goal is how can we make their healthcare better? How can we do things with them while they're awake and voluntarily participating? And so we use a lot of positive reinforcement training, which is just really fancy for you get something good in return. So if we're asking them to get on their scale, because we're asking them to get a weight, to make sure that their body condition is good, they might get a grape. If we're working on voluntary blood draw or cardiac ultrasound or all these other things, they'll get a much higher reward. So we kind of up the ante depending on what we're doing. But it's really fantastic because that wasn't always the case. We're able to do a lot more with them now while they're awake, so that particularly surrounding their heart health. So they can suffer from heart disease the same way humans can, as all the 5 great apes can, including humans. And so it's really important for us to work with them and make sure that their hearts are in good shape. And so we're really fortunate to be able to work with a really amazing vet staff team and other outside parties that come and do that with us. But we train all kinds of stuff, and we're always kind of trying to think of new things and push those limits, which is challenging for us. And then the other part of it too is building new enrichment and creating a really engaging enrichment program for them to keep them mentally and physically stimulated. And so really there's also a lot of kind of behind the scenes conversations between keepers, and we get really excited about what we're doing for the day or what we're going to build or what project we're working on, whose birthday party we get to set up that day. So yeah, I mean, that's a pretty average day. We do a lot of great keeper chats at the zoo. Currently right now, the primate team does one around chimpanzees and then one around our red ape reserve, which includes our orangutans and our gibbons. So
wow, that's pretty exciting. Do you have your own like group chats where you say,
yeah.
Delilah really likes this. I tried this out. You should give that a shot.
Yeah, we talk actually quite a bit when we're in person. So we have kind of central hub office where we can all get together, but we do definitely have kind of group text where we send each other pictures throughout the day if something really fun comes up. So a good example is this morning we switched up the chimpanzee groupings and who they're with, which is called fission fusion. So fission, you split apart, fusion, you come back together. So we switched up the groups, and Chloe, who is our oldest at 54, was leading patrol. So they'll do this in the wild too, where they basically patrol their area. And so they've literally been patrolling together all day, which is really, really great to see. So yeah.
Well, the Oregon Zoo has a pretty storied, history working, I know, with primates and chimpanzees in particular. And this also goes back to, Delilah too, and her origins. But can you talk about that? What makes it special at the Oregon Zoo with this primate program?
Yeah, so it really kind of advanced in the 70s when Jane Goodall came and really helped us to kind of build a new yard and all of that. And actually, that yard we currently have switched over and basically renovated into our new primate forest habitat. So now we have 2 yards and 1 large day room. And so we have the open air habitat and then the mesh gen habitat, and there's pros and cons to both. So it's kind of great to have one of each. Yeah, I'm sorry, I forgot your question there. Oh, there's Nan.
Just talking about the origins of the Oregon Zoo's program and just how long.
Sure. So yeah, the old yard that they see now, we renovated in to be with the new area, but essentially that whole program, back in the 1970s, the pet trade around chimpanzees was very, very high. And actually 2 of our chimpanzees, Jackson and Chloe, were first captured as pets from the wild.
Wow.
So they have different backgrounds, different personalities. Obviously, being raised by humans in the first several years, they are a little bit different in their behavior. And so the best thing we could do for them was put them with other chimpanzees. So they joined Delilah and her sister Leia. And then we just got in 5 more chimpanzees this last year. So it's been really beautiful to kind of see where our care for them goes over time. And I expect when I'm closer to retirement age that it will have surpassed me as well, and we'll know even more. One thing that's really fantastic about the chimpanzees specifically, but a lot of the other animals at the zoo, is they're almost always part of something called an SSP, or a species survival plan. And so our curator, myself, and another primate keeper just got back a couple weeks ago from a chimpanzee workshop, which is very fun. And it basically is a lot of other facilities getting together and sharing information, sharing presentations, open panel discussions, all of this stuff that really just helps us advance each other across the board, across facilities, whether it's sanctuaries or zoos. And so it's been really beautiful to watch that over time, especially since I've been in the field about 20 years, to see how far we've come and to be excited to keep going, and also having kind of like fresh, greener keepers come in with their own ideas and really molding that with our ideas. Because what we definitely don't want is to kind of always have this old school mentality of how we did it. There's always more to do. And so we're pretty open-minded as a team working together to really kind of advance all that stuff forward to better care for them. So
I was wondering about that, if you'd shared information with other places, which is pretty much what you just said. So if you find something that works really well, or there's some new data that you get, you share that with somebody else, and vice versa.
Yeah, absolutely. Because there's no point in reinventing the wheel, right? And it actually gets really fun, especially in those larger rooms where you start talking about something and then somebody's like, oh yeah, and I do this and I do this. and it just helps everybody. So I thrive off of that. I think it's great. I love sharing information and learning information from other people to just constantly make it better. So
Well, you mentioned Jane Goodall as well, who was actually involved here in Portland. I know it wasn't called the Oregon Zoo back then, whatever it was. I forget the name of it from the 70s, but Jane Goodall was actually here working with this same program, the origins of it, and was there when worked with Delilah, right? When Delilah was
Correct. Yeah, Delilah, Chloe, and then Delilah's younger sister, Leia, who passed away last year. She was also part of that as well. So she worked with them quite a bit when they were younger, not so much in a day-to-day capacity, but coming to visit, giving advice on what they could do with their enrichment and training program, their building, all of that. They helped us raise money to build that new area as well, that yard, that open air yard that actually you see them on right now. That ground footprint is original. So we liked that area and wanted to kind of build upon it. So when we did that, we added in that termite mound, which is fantastic. So this is really cool. That's Delilah there with a GoPro camera. So we also have that as part of our enrichment program too. But the termite mound is pretty cool too, because we can access it from inside, put tubes in there with different condiments and different things. And then those browse or branches that they get during the day, they have to strip to a certain size to get into those holes. So it's following kind of that natural behavior of fishing for chimpanzees in the wild. So some people, when we say fishing, think of like fish fishing. These guys in the wild, when they fish, it's for like termites and ants and other things in tree holes that they'll pull out. So they do a very similar thing here, and they get pretty excited about it.
What did you say were the treats that are in there?
So there's usually different condiments. So we have a pretty extensive list of, like if you open up your refrigerator and all the condiments you see in there, we likely have a lot of those here for the chimpanzees too. So they get a really small amount in the bottom of a tube, and that tube connects on the inside of those termite mounds that we have. We have one in the yard and one in the day room. And and so those holes you see there, they'll take those branches and stick in those holes and basically pull out honey, ketchup, mustard, barbecue sauce, salad dressing. We have a whole bunch of stuff that we try out, and we're always kind of adding to it just to kind of keep up that variety and find stuff that each individual likes, because they are each individual. So for example, somebody might love mustard and somebody might hate it. So we really try and keep it, varied so that we can just really keep everybody engaged and having a good time and enjoying their enrichment.
That's hilarious. I had no idea. I'm going to look at that differently every time now. So talking about Delilah, what makes Delilah so special just even within chimpanzees?
She's very, very smart. And, a lot of people say, oh, this one's really smart. No, she's pretty smart. And I mean that both socially. So she's really socially smart around other chimpanzees. She knows when to step in and when to back off. She knows all the social cues she needs to do, especially say with our new male Pericles. But she also is really engaged in her training program. So this has been probably one of the most, I've taken the most pride in over the 10 years that I've been here, is really working with her to build up her training program. And so, working with her on voluntary injection training, so we can actually give them their flu vaccine or their COVID vaccine, or if they have to have an anesthetic exam or an immobilization, we're able to do that voluntarily. And so these are all things, again, that are for their healthcare that better care for them. But one of the hardest ones is doing voluntary blood draw. And so we only have to do that once or twice a year, but it gives us a lot of information on how that heart is doing, because we already know that she has some heart issues that she's on medications for. So it really helps us track and give our veterinary staff that information. So just her progression of training over the years, I've been really proud of, obviously with our other chimpanzees too. And now we have 5 more coming in that we get to kind of start from scratch on and work with them. But I've just been really proud of that, and really watching her kind of grow. Besides just with the training with her, I'm really proud to see how confident she has become over the years. So she used to kind of be a little bit more aloof and would react kind of strongly to certain keepers and throw things or whatever. And she just is a lot more calm animal and seems to be more confident in herself. even at 50 years old, 10 years ago, she was still throwing some temper tantrums here and there, which is normal, but not necessarily normal for a 40-year-old chimpanzee. So just to see her really gain that confidence. And I think we really saw that come out when we moved them to the new primate forest building. And then they first got to explore. It just she came over, she said hi, she was excited, and then she left and went and explored her habitat with all the other animals she was with. And that was very heartwarming for us to see. So yeah.
Well, at 50, that seems like a pretty advanced age for chimpanzee.
Sure.
But again, I also don't know what an average age is. So where does that fall in the range of average age for chimpanzees?
Yeah, so average age in the wild is mid 40s. It tends to have females outlive the males, but that's not necessarily the case all the time. And so at 50, she is considered geriatric. So we have Chloe, Jackson, and Delilah are all three of our geriatric individuals, and we've had to kind of alter their care. So we make certain things a little bit easier. So when we hang up the ropes, we'll put knots in them, or really watch how they use the habitat and then adjust that. And saying that too, we also do these really amazing quality of life assessments on them every month, so that we know that their quality of life, not just how long they're living, is really for them and allowing them to really behave and act and thrive as a chimpanzee. And so yeah, we just have done quite a bit with her. And so in human care, again, that training program I was talking about, we can keep up on a lot of those things, so we can address them a lot quicker. Our veterinary staff is fantastic. So when we have to do something with them, whether it's the veterinarians or the veterinary technicians, we work with them really closely, and then they eat better than I do. So we also have really great nutrition staff who gets us everything we need for these guys to really be healthy. And yeah, they definitely eat better than I do. So that definitely helps her in her age. So all those things being in human care, obviously they wouldn't have in the wild. So, they have great doctors and care staff around them here.
I mean, they already have every condiment apparently you can get, so that makes sense. The rest of us get too.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned, the wild population as well, or kind of alluded to that. So how does this help, I guess, sustain and maintain the wild population? Is there any kind of a crossover there?
Yeah, so what our hope is really with any of the species here at the zoo is that people take away, not everybody's going to be connected to a chimpanzee. Maybe they're connected to a polar bear or a red panda or our gator, or, our crocs and everything like that. So our goal is to really make sure that people feel connected to those animals, even if it's not all of the animals. So our job as keepers, especially during those keeper chats, during our signage, the enrichment we put out, the training sessions that people get to see, that they build that connection so that they do want to care and do want to do something. And so we're really upfront about, this animal is critically endangered and here's what you can do. And oftentimes a lot of these issues feel a lot bigger than us, but we like to really break it down into what they can do. So for example, some of the top ones for chimpanzees is actually buying FSC certified wood and paper and recycling. That's a pretty common one, but that helps lessen the amount of logging and unsustainable logging that happens in Africa. Also, recycling your cell phone. So there's actually minerals within the battery of cell phones that is mined in Africa. And so the more we can recycle those, the less they have to mine. So a lot of that is the reusing. The other one is using this really cool, fun app. It's called the Palm Oil Scan app. And basically, palm oil is native to West Africa. It really took off on a mass scale in Indonesia, where our orangutan redhead friends are. But it's now also on a mass scale down in South America. So it's really taken over a lot of those rainforested areas. And because it's a monoculture crop, meaning that it can't grow within the rainforest like, say, shade coffee does, it's really important that we do that sustainably, because if you don't, you're essentially taking virgin rainforest, everything that it lives within that virgin rainforest, and putting this crop in. So really getting that sustainable palm oil is very important. So that Palm Oil Scan app is just really fun. It's a barcode scanner. So, if you're at the grocery store and you have 2 things of ice cream and you want to know which one has sustainable palm oil in it and which one doesn't, you can just scan it right away. And as a consumer, you're able to make a better choice right there and then. what I love about it is it takes out a lot of the guessing work, because palm oil can be up to about 70% of the products at a grocery store. A lot of processed foods, but even shampoos and milk and that sort of thing. And so it can also be labeled under over 30 different chemical compound names like sodium laurate. So if we're telling the public buy sustainable palm oil and they don't even know palm oil's in it, that's challenging in itself. So that app is a really good one to just go, oh, I didn't know it had palm oil in it, or that's really great. What I was already buying is great. And if it's not, then you're able to make that switch for really all the primates, which obviously covers kind of everybody in that biodiversity realm around that as well.
I had no idea about that. So palm oil scan app.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I will download that after we're done right here. So, well, Colleen, I want to say thank you, very much for spending your time to talk about this, because this is really, really interesting learning about this. I think the last question I have for you is, what is the thing that you are most excited about when you come into work to work with Delilah?
Oh, honestly, at this point in time, it's been watching her with other chimpanzees. So, we had a pretty geriatric population for a while. We were waiting to do the new building from the new bond. And a few of us have been around since almost the beginning of that process. And to see it kind of come to fruition, and to be able to have brought in those other chimpanzees who also needed to find a forever home, to then see them interact with all of our geriatric chimpanzees, and including Delilah, it's just really, really lovely. So again, today, watching them kind of patrol around the island together and doing what chimpanzees are supposed to do is exactly what we would like to see. So it's beautiful.
Colleen, thank you very much for spending some time to talk with us about this. This has been
My
really,
pleasure.
really interesting learning about all of it. And I know you've got a lot of work to do, so I'll let you get back to it. But thanks for being here with us today.
Thank you so much. My pleasure.
So again, that was Colleen from the Oregon Zoo talking about that. That was really interesting. I had no idea about most of that stuff, and now I feel like I've learned a lot more, and now I really want to go to the zoo. But thanks for also joining us here on this show. Wherever you found us, this is where we are. So whether that's on the app or YouTube or the website or wherever it is, remember that we're live here every weekday at 1 p.m. Pacific. We get to have really fun conversations like that. Sometimes we go in depth with a news story. It's all across the board, but it's all right here. And I thank you for joining us. Send us an email, fox12now@kptv.com, if you have anything that you think we should be covering here, or you think you have an interview you want to hear about, or a news story, whatever it is, send us that, fox12now@kptv.com, and then you can, there we go, talk directly to me. So again, I'm Greg Nibbler. Thanks for joining us. This is Fox 12 Now.